Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 24th Committee of a Whole, and if Ms. Spoke would please read the roll.
Councilmember Wood,
Here.
Councilmember Garza, Councilmember Hussein, Councilmember Spatafor, Councilmember Spitzley,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Cost. 6 members present, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And just for the audience that is watching, both Councilmember Garza and Councilmember Hussein had asked for excused absence. With that, I will move to the minutes, and I will go to Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the minutes from March 13th, 2023 and March 20, 2023, both Committee of the Whole meetings, and one was the Committee of the Whole and the Board of Water and Light meeting.
All right, we have the minutes before us. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, we'll move. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. This is an opportunity for public comment. Anyone who has public comment may come up to the dais, and you will have 3 minutes. So if you would like to speak at this time, please come up to the dais and state your name for the record, and we will move forward.
Elaine Fishoff, a citizen of Ward 2, and I'm here as resident of Ward 2 and a citizen committed to seeing that everyone from my neighborhood to the city of Lansing to the federal government recognize the necessity of taking greenhouse gas and environmental sustainability and justice into consideration. I'm here to speak about the minutes of the meeting with the Lansing Board of Water and Light. I don't know if anybody read them. They don't make any sense. Let's see. Mr. Peffley stated that in conjunction with Agenda J and explained that an RFP was sent in 2022 to see what capacity of energy sources were out there. Let's see. Supposedly the Bell River plant, Bell is supposed to be spelled B-E-L-L-E, is going to be converted from natural gas to coal. That makes absolutely no sense because the only thing that could possibly happen was coal to natural gas because it's coal right now. I'm really disappointed that the council approved those minutes. They don't make any sense. They don't provide any concrete information. It's really disappointing. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come? Michael.
I don't miss an opportunity to talk. I wanted to talk on agenda items H and I, and that's all. But you guys are going to go into closed session. I'm okay with transparency on my issue, my situation with the city, as I'm named on here. I just want to give you guys kind of an understanding of what's going on. I believe back in October, sometime around November, possibly, we put in what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find it. Anyways, we offered 1.25 to completely wipe away the whole situation, all of my legal matters that I have with the city of Lansing, which was seemed to be considered for consideration anyways, but they wanted to pile everything in on top of it. That was eventually turned down, came back to us with, I believe, somewhere around $800,000, which wasn't really enough. But as it sits right now, so you all are going to get this information when you go in the room, they have filed what's called post-trial motions on my case. 2 of the motions that they filed are actually the same motion they filed in the trial before we got the jury verdict, and they were denied by the same judge who was about to look at these now again. It's probably been 5 months now, I believe, 4 months since they filed those post-file motions. At this point right now, they owe $1 million in a verdict for the Elliott Larson Act, Civil Rights Act that they violated, and then they owe, I think, about $250,000 in interest as it sits right now. Again, that offer has been on the table for 1.25. But as it sits, also, our lawyer has also filed a motion for $500,000 in attorney fees. So as it is total, it's going to be somewhere around 1.75 million that's going to be owed should the spaghetti they threw at the wall not stick. And I'm just saying this because we should all matter. It all should all care about the aspects of our financial health, right? When we're dealing with all these lawsuits. I don't know what they told you over the last 4 years. I know the city pulse, the mayor said that, we're confident we're going to prevail in court, and I'm sure you guys heard that for 4 years. Do we not trust the judicial system? They came back with a guilty verdict, and here we are still BSing on this situation. Amanda O'Boyle sat in that courtroom for 7 days, gave her best argument that sucked, and lost. The jury came back with a straight-up guilty verdict on the city of Lansing for the Elliott Larson Act. I just don't know when this stops. How much more money are we going to spend on outside attorneys to clear up the mayor's misfortunes and his actions? I'm all willing to settle this case. As I've said before, we have a workman's comp case that's going to be coming up and a wrongful termination that'll probably be up here in about 2 months, or about 2 weeks now. So that's going to be more litigation and outside attorneys. You have a chance for 1.25 to settle this thing now and save the city taxpayers money, me money. And then also on top of that fact, it's just retribution. I mean, we're going to just keep fighting this thing until what point? Racism was a public health crisis back in 2020 in June. You all stated that. So when you go back in that room and they start telling you how they believe they can win on an appeal, look at the percentage of that. But they're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to do that. An attorney will tell you that, we'll fight it to the end because they're getting paid nonstop for that, out of our pockets, out of all these people's pockets. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Mine is pretty quick because I've got D and I kind of struggled back and forth which one to go with first because I is the closed session. And that should be quite a closed session. There's a lot there. But I'll start with the mayor's annual report, just simply because I just wonder what that is going to sound like. I'm kind of anticipating, is it going to be mimicking of the, state of the city that we just heard recently? Because what it should include and what any good annual report from anyone, especially the CEO of a city, should be accomplishments, goals, and of course, challenges. I wonder how much time is going to be spent talking about the many challenges we faced, not only last year, but, we'll go with last year because that's what this is about. I think one of the major concepts of this report should focus on is the financial health of our city. We just got a whole earful about the financial health of our city and pertinent to just one case. You're going to be talking in closed session about a whole lot of others. And if we know, the mayor has a huge issue with transparency. I mean, that just cannot be understated. So I just wonder what the conversation sounds like when there is a complete full lack of transparency. And the number one reason why people avoid transparency is to avoid accountability. The problem is that would be one thing if it was him personally accountable, but it's not. It's our city. It's our taxpayer dollars over and over and over when you're being told one thing. The question that I would have, and of course I know you can't answer here, but ask yourselves is what is really preventing you from really knowing the full, true, accurate details of many of these cases, especially one in which a jury of their peers found guilty of creating a hostile work environment based on race? What is preventing you from knowing some of the details and the facts and the evidences in some of these cases when you keep getting sued for creating hostile work environments, when you keep getting sued for violating the Elliott Larson Act? These are things that we should actually be thinking about and talking about before we just get force-fed a whole bunch of propaganda. I think that when you do that, when he does that, it creates a very, very false sense of security that I don't think that we as a city can afford to have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on into our agenda. The first item up on the agenda is the Ingham County Treasurer, Alan Fox. Alan, if you could please come to the table here. Yep, that'd be great. And once you get seated, and you can pull that mic up to you, and then make sure that the green light is on. You have to push down on the little button in the front there. You'll see the green light come on.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
And with that, we want to welcome Mr. Fox. And I know he's talked to a number of council members, and some of the information that he's been giving out about some of the plans that he and the land bank have, we felt was extremely important that we have a presentation that was made to the entire council as well as the public. So with that, we'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Wood, and thanks to the rest of the council for the opportunity. Councilmember Wood and I spoke privately, about 2 months, less than 2 months ago, and much has changed since then. I want to commend Councilmember Cost for what he did to bring to light the issues with red tagging in the first ward, which I can guarantee you from our data are repeated in the other 3 wards as well. We are facing the issues now with a red tagged apartment building where people have been forced to leave for good reason, and finding that there is very little by way of good places to send people, and that's that's an issue that the city faces. It's an issue that the county faces. Historically, we've tried very hard not to give landlords and owners of red tag property much grace in enforcing property tax foreclosures, and the line has always been in past years, well, if you can't keep this up, you need to find a better place to go that's less expensive, that better suits your needs. And as I think all have become very aware in the past few months especially, that's an empty line. There really are not places to go in the city of Lansing and Ingham County as a whole. The city's not unique in that respect. Tri-County Regional Planning Commission is supposed to be coming up with a report that's coming out any day now for the last 6 or 8 months that will show 15,000 units that the area is short, the bulk of those in city of Lansing by way of housing. So those are things that are different since we last talked, but they feed into some of the same things that we've been talking about at the treasurer's office. The county treasurer by statute has a fairly limited role in housing. We enforce property tax collections, do foreclosures, and the treasurer also chairs the county land bank, and in that respect tries to do better with property that's been foreclosed, get it back into productive use, however that's defined. But we see, because we deal with people who are in danger of foreclosure, we see every day who the individuals are, and so we spend a lot of time thinking about what is needed in the community as a whole, what can be done, how to approach these. We're very fortunate in Ingham County compared to other counties in the state, and this is a tribute to the work my predecessor Eric Schertzing did, to have a very good ratio of foreclosure prevention staff to foreclosure prevention issues. I've talked with the Wayne County treasurer who wants to know how he can do what we do, and I tell him he only needs to hire about 100 times as many staff as he has. He's got that many parcels to deal with. So we're now, this Friday is the deadline for paying 2020 and earlier year taxes to avoid foreclosure. There were, as of the end of February, about 450 such parcels in Ingham County, 80 or 90% of them in the city of Lansing. Through our efforts, which include not just collecting the taxes, but working one-on-one with as many households as we possibly can, I can say there are going to be fewer than 80 foreclosures in the county. And this will be the 3rd year in a row that we've held foreclosures under 80. Our office has been very active in promoting the MyHalf program for homeowners, getting funds out to people who owe delinquent property taxes, utilities, and other homeowner-related costs. Most of the other counties in the state have just told people about it and told them to go find some way to file. We've been holding events throughout the city, one that was outside the city, but throughout the city, neighborhood by neighborhood, at places where people are comfortable going and that have the sort of internet connection that people who are poor do not have in their homes, starting with 3 of the city's libraries and continuing to community centers, Cristo Rey, church on West Holmes, all sorts of places where we can get people to come in and get the applications for state assistance filled out with help from Capital Area Housing Partnership, which is the agency that the state has contracted with to do this. We've brought, at last count, about $2 million in delinquent and current year property taxes into the county, 80% of that into the city. And according to the state statistics, for every dollar in delinquent tax money that we bring in, there's an additional $2 that goes to pay utility costs and other costs of homeownership. We know that the Board of Water and Light has been an active partner and has received many bill payments as a result of their partnership and enabled people to get caught up on those bills as well. So that's our first role, and I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish in Ingham County. And again, whenever we talk about what we do in Ingham County, 80% of that is in the city of Lansing, but we do stretch from Stockbridge all the way up to Lansing. Similarly, the land bank has a role in trying to provide additional housing in the city and in the county, and the land bank's holdings are more like 90% in the city than 80%. The land bank gets property from property tax foreclosures. The property the land bank gets, at least these days, I think it was a different situation 15 years ago, but at least these days the land bank gets nothing but property that is regarded by every aspect of the market as worthless or worse. Last year, actually, no property at all survived through auction and ended up at the land bank. Land bank acquired 0 new parcels through property tax foreclosure a year ago. For the 2 years before that, it acquired only vacant lots, some of them too small to build on or otherwise situated in places where they couldn't be used, or in a handful of cases, property that needed to be demolished and was. This is not the situation that the land bank faced many, many years ago, and I'm indebted to Councilmember Wood for having some of the much of the memory and knowledge of those days, because I wasn't working in this field then, and that's useful for us to be aware of. The land bank has already been before the city with one proposal to build on vacant land in the city of Lansing, and they'll be back time and time again over the next few years. There are 2 kinds of parcels where the land bank is going to be building, and by that I mean designing property and contracting with local contractors to build it. The land bank is acting as a contractor in these cases, not as really as a government agency. One is that on corridors, on transportation corridors such as Saginaw, MLK, and Pennsylvania, there are plans to take vacant lots where there are 2 or more of them together, combine those, and build what we're calling row houses, essentially townhouse condominium developments. These are, because they're condominium, they're to be owner-occupied. The first one, and I apologize for not knowing the complete process that the city has, so I don't know whether it's been before the council or not, is going to place 5 units on Saginaw Street directly across from the old St. Lawrence Hospital. The second one, which I do know has not been before the council, will be roughly around the corner on North MLK, about 2 blocks or blocks south of Saginaw. The others won't come here until next year at the earliest. These are attempts to slightly increased density along corridors, which ought to be something that we believe the city should be interested in trying to do as a way of bringing additional housing into the city. It means that housing can be provided more cheaply than in the single-family houses on places where people have access to transportation. I'm excited about building in the vicinity of Saginaw and MLK because of all of the other work that's going on that the city has been involved in, that's going to increase the commercial space available there, and that really does promise to make that section of the city, revive that section of the city again. I'm excited that the businesses who are involved in doing this appear to be largely locally owned and appear to be people who not only are from the area, but are specifically from the neighborhood. That's very positive. That's how we get good things to happen in the city. The other thing the land bank will be doing, the land bank has acquired a fair number of single-family-sized vacant parcels scattered around the city. They are large enough lots to build single-family houses on, mainly in the southern part of the city. The lots in the northern part of the city are often older. They're not large enough to build on. You have to wait until you get two of them together. We're not aggressively or at all going out to neighbors and saying, we want to take your house so we can tear it down and build something larger there. That's not something we do. That's not something we should be doing. But particularly on the south side of town, there are a scattering of single-family-sized lots, and we'll be moving ahead with the help of state money and some county money to put single-family houses up there, again, for owner occupancy, to stabilize those neighborhoods, houses that will fit into the neighborhoods, that will we will talk with people in the neighborhoods about, so that it's understood that what we're doing is benefiting the communities. Those are important to do. We're going to spend a fair amount of county money, a fair amount of the state's money to do them, and it will be of great assistance, I think, to the neighborhoods in the city. It's also going to be a drop in the bucket. To be honest, we're talking about 10 or 15,000 units needed in the city and in the county. If we can build on 15 or 20 of those in 3 or 4 years, that's going to meet the goals. If we can encourage developers without land bank support to take land bank vacant lots, which we offer for cheap, and do the same thing without public money, again, it'll be 20, 30, maybe 40 lots over 3 or 4 years. 50 or 60 new single-family houses are important. We intend to do our best to ensure that people who have not had access to mortgages in the past, have been excluded from home ownership in the past, have the first access to these properties. We're working very actively with local credit unions and some local banks as well to ensure that we can do that. It is a problem the city is going to have as long as housing is so tight that if we build something that's relatively inexpensive in a neighborhood in Lansing, somebody is going to want to come in from Okemos and pay less money, deal with availability issues. That's how people get squeezed out of neighborhoods, is by having such a shortage that people who have resources go to where the housing is, regardless of trying to meet the need in the urban area. We're going to do our best to avoid doing that. We're going to do our best to ensure that housing goes to people in the community and who have been excluded from home ownership in the past, not to people who have other options.
I think we have a couple questions from
Okay.
council members.
Yeah.
Councilmember Spitzley and then Councilmember Brown.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, I'm encouraged by what you're saying, but, you know, I'd be interested in what concrete steps you're taking to do that. That's the first thing. I mean, you know, you talk about the last week's, you know, housing issue at 922 West Holmes, and I will agree with you that that was a failure on all sides. And so when you mention it, then I'm assuming that you have or resources available that could have helped us do that instead of just mentioning it as an anecdote, as you're talking about Treasury. So I'd be interested to hear what resources that you would have bring to bear to make sure that didn't happen. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is the land bank issue. I've had people come to me and, call the number on the land bank and they cannot get through. And so I think that having that stuff available, particularly for people who live in that neighborhood and want to buy the adjoining piece of property or whatever, I think that's excellent. But I myself have driven by a property, gotten the address, looked on the land bank's website, and it's nowhere to be found. And so I'm curious as to, how or what your thoughts are to make that program more robust and make it more accessible to folks who are actually looking at buying property within the land bank. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me start with that question. That was one of the concerns I had when I became treasurer. We're working on that. We're working on figuring out how we're spending time now reclassifying property so that property that is actually available is displayed properly on the website. We had hoped to have that done by now. It's like a lot of other technological things and a lot of other things with limited staff. It's still in process, but it is a priority. And in fact, just last week I spent about 2 or 3 hours with the land bank staff going through the database, saying, why is the classification for this one blank instead of saying it's available, it's not available, and what do we mean when we say that this is the status of a property? So we have about 600 properties in the county. We're going through them one at a time. We will have that up very soon. The land bank also got hit by a technological problem, which was that the previous executive director paid for the website listing and didn't pass the password on to the successor. The money to have the website up expired suddenly about 2 weeks ago. And so I think the website has not been very available for the past couple of weeks. It has, yeah. So we're working around that, and that's a point that I've considered well taken, and we're trying to address that. To be honest, I don't have an answer or resources to deal with the rental property issue, except to, if you will, commiserate a little bit that we also are having to decide what to do with people who are in red tag property when we know that there's no place for them to go. And I think that's something we need to put our heads together on. There's not an easy answer. I have a hard answer, a long answer, and the hard and long answer is that until the supply of housing is increased in the community, it's going to be possible for landlords to rent out substandard property, and it's going to be necessary for some people to live in that kind of property because there's no place else to go. And that's the reality we all have to face. We've got different resources, different approaches to that. And so where I was going with that is we need to work together on it with the different resources. We've gotten one of the things that's happening later, actually tomorrow, is that MISHDA is finally meeting with local organizations and governments to talk about the housing strategy for the Tri-County region. They've been promising this since November. I'm excited to go because I've been wanting to pencil it into my calendar since they said they were going to do it in November. So we'll see where that goes. I believe there are a lot of resources coming from the state. I want to see those resources put to good use. We all do. We all have to work together to do that, not fight turf battles. And I'm not saying that we have, but that's always a problem in any attempt to do regional work that we need to be aware of. So I'm looking forward to that meeting tomorrow to see where that goes.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, President Wood. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. It sounds like that you guys are trying to make headway on several different areas. To piggyback on what Councilwoman Spitzley was saying, what are the actual tangible ways that you were talking about making sure that housing is available to those that ownership that have been excluded in the past, and working with local credit unions and so forth? Are there going to be, where there's additional support as far as requirements or qualifications? Or is it going to be, the same status quo that, you don't have this or you don't have this credit score, so you're not eligible for this?
Well, there are two pieces to that. One is to, as I said, work with these, and I say credit unions, and I'm going to keep saying credit unions because they largely are credit unions, who are based in the community and understand the needs in the community. And we have from them knowledge that their existing programs, which they don't all do a good job of promoting, do have two things. One is lower credit score requirements, but more importantly, the case-by-case sort of analysis that's needed to say, this will work, we can make this work, even if the numbers don't quite pan out on paper. And that's something that we're pushing very hard for, and we're gratified to see that a couple of the credit unions that we've been talking with already have such things in mind. The other thing that needs to be done is one that doesn't get talked about much, and that is the history of at least the land bank in the past. I can't speak for other organizations. Has been you build or rehab, more commonly rehab a house, you put it on the market, you see what the market brings. That's going to have the effect in our market now of pricing people out of those houses. So we are putting, the word is never used, but the word is subsidies. We're subsidizing the construction of housing. That requires building some requirements in that will encourage people to stay in the house that they buy as long as possible, encourage them if they do need to leave for whatever reason to sell it to somebody else who is both income qualified and will own the home as a homeowner, not as a rental unit. We're going to be pretty strong about both of those requirements. Aside from the desires of the land bank and others, it happens to be more consistent with federal law, and we are spending ARPA dollars, so we have to be consistent with federal law. I think it's something we would have got to ourselves. The other thing we're going to do, though, is not necessarily put all of the housing on the open market. One of the things I've learned from Habitat, for example, they never put a house on the open market. They have a qualified home buyer lined up in advance. I think we're going to try to do the same thing, and that will allow us to do our marketing with community organizations, with churches, with any other place that can put us in touch with the many, many, many people in this community who need housing, who can afford housing, who have been excluded from those markets in the past. It gives us time to get people involved with the sort of education that the credit unions and Capital Area Housing Partnership also have, because a new homeowner has things to learn about what it means to have the responsibility of a home in order to be successful. We're going to do all those things with anything that has county money involved in it. We have not worked out the details. Working out the details is something that has been a partnership with community organizations, with the credit unions, and to some extent even with the contractors. We're doing a similar capacity building effort with local contractors. We hear from local contractors that they don't sign up for MISHDA because they have to jump through too many application processes even to become eligible to get money. One of the things one of the other things that I do, with the other hat I wear, is chair of the county's housing task force, or housing trust fund rather. The housing trust fund is created with ARPA money. We've granted some money to CAP. We've granted some money to the land bank. We have $2 million available now in competitive grants, and we are working with anybody we can work with to encourage contractors who have not qualified, have not tried to qualify for state grants or other grants, to engage in the process. We have a pre-application process so that we can pair people up with navigators who can help them actually do the paperwork. These are people who are qualified to build houses. They have experience building houses. They don't have experience filling out paperwork. And we are determined not to let that get in the way and to try to build capacity so that these folks, after they do a couple of small projects with some county assistance, are in line to get the larger dollars that are available through MISHDA. This is a consequence of the housing crash in 2008 was that a lot of businesses went under and stayed under. A lot of qualified people who would otherwise be in the market are not in the market, number one. Number two, a lot of contractors are not the sorts of folks that the state has wanted to deal with for a variety of reasons that include not being conventional in how they approach things. They're responsible, they are honest, but they're not on the approved lists, and it's up to the county to try to figure out ways to get these folks so that they do follow the rules, do learn how to make the process work. You can't do that on your own if you're a small contractor in the area. We're confident from what we've seen of the people who buy property at the treasurer's auctions, that there are a wide variety of people who are qualified to do more than they are doing, and we really want to encourage them. That's going to build capacity in the community. It's going to build the small business portion of the community, and I think it's going to be particularly beneficial to minority contractors who we know have done excellent work and who also, for the most part, have been excluded from getting state grants.
Do you have another question?
No, I was just saying thank you, answered my second question as well.
Okay. We do have Councilmember Cost and then Councilmember Spatafor. We've got about 10 more minutes, and then we have to move on. So.
And I apologize for being so wordy. I told Councilmember Wood when I first talked to her, I have a tendency to go on.
Not a problem. I know that this conversation could go on well for an hour, but we do have some other business too. So Councilmember Cost, and then Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, President Wood, and I have the same issue. I'll talk for hours. So just to go back to this red tag, Lansing's got 706 last count on the red tagged unsafe houses. You had said something about the short fix right now is people having to live in substandard housing. So I guess my question is, outside of Lansing right now, how many houses are deemed substandard? Do you guys have a count on that in the county?
Well, but most of the units, not most of the population, but most of the units in the county don't do anything like that. There are housing is registered and rental housing is registered in East Lansing. I don't know that it is much of anywhere else. So there's nothing equivalent because the city of Lansing tries to do a more thorough job of guaranteeing the quality of housing. A lot of the rural townships, I know there are problems there. I see houses that would be red tagged if they were in Lansing, but there is frankly nobody to red tag them, and that's typical of the rural areas anywhere in the state, and it's why, although I'm very happy to be here, very happy to talk about issues in the city of Lansing, see issues in the city of Lansing as important. I also will argue that the issues in the rural areas do not get noticed.
So when it comes to the areas outside of Lansing, do you have an estimate of how much affordable housing, say, Okemos has or Meridian Township, East Lansing, or other areas that aren't specific to Lansing?
No, I think the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission study will give us some notion of that. And that's why I've been eagerly waiting and checking emails to see when it comes out, because we all need to have that kind of information. The short answer is, I suspect when we have the data, it'll confirm what we all know, which is that the vast bulk, out of proportion to the population, of affordable housing in the county is in city of Lansing. There are certainly parts of Meridian Township and East Lansing that you could consider affordable housing. I was on city council in East Lansing about 1,000,000 years ago, and in East Lansing, of course, it's a completely different universe because of student housing, and anything that compares student housing with housing in other communities just doesn't. It's apples and oranges almost.
So
and
let me
it's
ask
a
you
different-
this
different
then.
situation.
So you're a former council member for East Lansing, where they have districts where there's no rentals. There's one just over the border of where I live. Do you think that might perpetuate the problem that we're seeing in housing right now by cities like East Lansing having several areas where they don't allow any rentals?
In East Lansing, and they did that after I left the council, they didn't like my ideas. In East Lansing, that's done to keep students out of neighborhoods. It's as discriminatory as redlining, and it has the same effect, although not by race or by other characteristics of that nature. I'll tell you what I advocated 40 years ago in East Lansing was I said if you wanted to provide more housing, first of all, you need to build more housing. That was the answer to the housing crisis that East Lansing had in the 70s, was to build more. So in that respect, I guess I'm a broken record. The other thing I said was that if you wanted to have settle the issue of competition between the downtown and the adjoining neighborhoods, which at the time were not student-dominated, you needed to build up. You couldn't throw the downtown into the neighborhoods, and they finally did that. So that only took about 30 or 40 years. I'm patient. I don't know if I'm that patient, but that was not. But they did that not primarily as a housing issue. They did that to keep the property values of homeowner residents near the downtown up, and then they let them go rental, and then they stopped extending the rental area. So it's not what I would have done, but it was the approach that the city did.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Councilmember Spatafor, who actually sits on Tri-County planning. So
Yeah.
as this report comes forward, we're going to be anxious to have some information. I think Councilmember Jackson also sits on Tri-County.
I'm told it's coming in a few weeks, couple weeks. Is that what you get too?
I've heard that for months.
Okay, me too.
For several months, it's coming.
I actually got materials last week, though, so we're getting closer and closer. I think one of the things that we see in this area is a mismatch between what is attainable for many of the jobs that are being created here in the community and what is being delivered across the region in terms of housing. That's really wasn't where I'm going with that, but I had a question for you about, are you aware of any programs? I hear a lot in our community, I can afford my rent. Why can't I afford my mortgage? And a lot of it is banks, credit unions, whatever, are taking a lot of factors into consideration about ability to pay that may not have a lot of impact on a renter's ability to pay a mortgage. Are there programs out there that can help sort of, even government will create one with the land bank, with the county, with the city, that would allow for us to help folks get into mortgages and more stable housing that show a track record of an ability to pay rent?
I don't know whether there are programs. I really do think the critical thing to do is to work with the lenders that are available locally that have an interest in doing that, and those are largely, not entirely, but largely credit unions, and they've got their own requirements because they're regulated by the federal government. They're regulated in some cases by the state, but largely by the federal government. But I see a lot of opportunities to do that. I don't know that it takes a program per se as much as it does doing the sorts of things that we've been trying to initiate, where we get people together and get them talking about it, and then figure out how to direct people there. Neither the city nor the county has really the capacity or the legal ability, I guess I'd say, to direct people to lenders in a way that we might want to do. We can think about whether there's a legal way to do that. And I don't know what the role is at either of our places, but that's a place, that's a thing where, we agree that it's an important thing to do. We ought to be looking for a way to get it done with what we can do.
I think there's a lot to unpack here. I'm looking at 55 slides from Tri-County right now, but one of the things that might be useful is to try and change how we talk about affordable housing. I mean, attainable housing in this community is about $940 a month, and that's a whole litany of jobs that are excluded from that attainability. And we need to start thinking differently about what affordable means, I think. So we're not just talking about some of the projects that come before us, but different types of affordability for folks that are without employment full-time and folks that have full-time jobs. We need to be thinking strategically about that, just to make sure that housing is attainable for a lot of our residents, and right now it's not.
I agree, and thank you for using the term attainable, which I did see a presentation from Tri-County which suggested using that phrase, and it just hasn't worked its way into my vocabulary quite yet. There are needs in this area across all categories of housing. We need to, from people who are homeless and are going to be homeless, even if you did all sorts of things to assist them, all the way up to the people we want to attract to the community, to the broad community, as people who are going to provide the economic backbone and change the economy of the area, the longer range, keeping college graduates in the community. As happens, and as will always happen, the market does a better job of that end of it, but it still hasn't done a perfect job. All of those need to happen, though, and the alternative is, if people want to stay in the community, if people see a future in the community, those that have resources will crowd out people who don't, and we will see neighborhoods where we think are relatively attainable, where that have long histories, and housing that is old but usable. That's going to become very attractive to people who are willing to pay higher prices for it than are paid now, and that's a danger. It's forced on us by the market, and dealing with all of that at once is an enormous challenge. I don't have the answers. None of us have all the answers. We only get it done by having this conversation and more like it, and having the conversations around specifics as well as the general issues constantly.
Well, there's a lot to be said, but Councilmember Wood's giving me the trademark eye here, so I'll stop talking. When the report's released, I hope we can have you back to chat about it.
Like that very much. Thank you all for indulging me on this, and this is not just a presentation and then I'll never see you again. I hope we'll continue this and on much more specific issues.
We do appreciate you coming in, Alan, and addressing some of these concerns, and we look forward as things move down with the land bank and different things are happening, that you come back periodically and give us those updates and keep us in the loop on what's going on. And I also want to thank you for being a Lansing resident, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to our first action. Oh, no, we next have the mayor's 2022 annual report. We did ask the administration if they would like to come and present the report. The information that we received from the mayor was that this report had been out since January. He hadn't received any questions from council, that he addressed these issues as part of the State of the City address, and he recommended that we go to the YouTube, to the address there, and look at it, and then if we had questions, we can get back with him. So that's the mayor's annual report. With that, we will move. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
Did we know?
I'm sorry. How did we know that it had been out since January? Were we given
We-
email or?
Yes,
we were-
we did, it was referred.
Okay.
And we did receive a copy in January as part of the council packet. So
Okay.
we did receive that. I know that when we went to look for it, we thought that it would be on the mayor's website, but it wasn't there. It might be there now, but it wasn't when we looked at it. It is under the clerk's page under documents there. So that's what we have.
Okay, so, and as I'm perusing through the annual report, I do have some questions, and so I guess I will ask the individual departments during the budget time about some of the numbers that are in his annual report, or what do we do here?
Well,
I just
if-
thought we would have an opportunity to engage with each other and discuss it, but if that's not the case, then I can reach out to the individual
That's not
departments.
the information that came directly from the mayor.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, that takes us to our next item, and that is a resolution on the assignment of the stadium license lease and service agreements. And do we have people here? Okay, if you'd come up to our, through the, yep, into the well, up to the table. We did have a presentation of this at our last Committee of a Whole meeting. In your package, you have, if you were not able to attend, we do have the PowerPoint that was put forth. We also have a copy of the assignment information, and we'll open it up if you have any remarks, and then we'll go on from there.
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Peter Freund. I'm the CEO of Diamond Baseball Holdings.
Thank you for
Zach,
coming.
of course, it's my pleasure. Had a great day at the ballpark. Wonderful time with the staff. Everybody's so committed to Lansing, and we are as well. So this is the 16th team that we have purchased. From Des Moines, Iowa to Oklahoma City to Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is our business. We are very well connected with the Oakland A's, Major League Baseball. We're excited to invest alongside of all of you in Lansing and the ballpark, and just continue to operate the club here for many years to come. So.
Okay. And then, Mr. City Attorney, was there anything that you wanted to add to the information that's been provided?
No, we've been dealing with the team's attorneys in putting together these documents, making sure that we have documents that protect their interest, our interest mainly. And so the documents and the resolution you have before you accurately reflect a transfer. So the lease will be transferred, assumed, assigned to the team, and it will run through 2038, I believe. And the liquor license should be coming next, right, Lisa? Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So Diamond Baseball, 16 teams. That's a lot.
It is.
A lot of spreading out your resources and investing in other places as well. You said you want to invest in Lansing, right?
Of course.
All those other places you want to invest in?
We have. I mean, we've made private investment in almost all of our clubs. A lot of private-public partnerships in Hudson Valley, New York. We just put $6 million into that facility as part of a public-private partnership. So, look, we're very bullish on the business, but the part that's really important about spreading out our resources is it's still a hyper-local business. It's still a Lansing business, so all of the staff that's in place, Zach's born and raised here, I mean, will remain. We understand how important the community connectivity is. So a lot of what we're doing, we have a lot of opportunity to bring in other than baseball events. Our backers, Silver Lake, is invested in Endeavor, which is the largest concert promoter in the world. So we are looking to bring other than baseball events as well to the ballpark. So we're really excited about continuing to just activate it here in the city of Lansing. So.
Sure, we just don't want to see anything bad happen to our lug nuts. And, you know, since it's a business for you all, how long, 2 years, 3 years you've been in it or something, I heard?
Well, so I've been in this for over a decade. I personally own 3 minor league teams that I rolled into this. So this is not just a startup. This is a long-term business that I've been in for a long time. So it's not just a fly-by-night kind of operation. And as far as taking care of the lug nuts, I mean, the reality is, given what Major League Baseball has now said has to happen from what they call a PDL compliance, I really believe that this ensures that baseball stays in Lansing for a very long time.
And I guess this last thing, it just makes it hard because when it's business and compliance might get hard all around with all your teams, and then businesses sell, they downgrade, all these different things. So since Lansing's so new, how would that, who's it gonna be if you have to downgrade?
We intend to keep PDL licenses for all of our teams. I mean, that's the key to the value of the club, so we can't really afford to downgrade. Major League Baseball has removed 42 teams from municipalities all over the country. They went from 160 to 120 minor league teams. Any team we're buying, that's not going to happen. So that's our commitment.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a simple one. Do you own the Blue Wahoos?
No, but Pensacola is the best. I love that. I love that stadium. All right, we'll work on that one so we can all go to the beach together.
All right, call a sister up. I live down the street from you.
Okay, all right, done.
Okay. Are there other questions? With that, Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move the resolution for the assignment of the stadium license, lease, and service agreement rights and obligations from Take Me Out to the Ballgame LLC to Diamond Baseball Holdings LLC.
Have a motion before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barn. It is on council tonight for a vote, so we will be voting later in the evening on this.
So we'll still be.
Okay, terrific. Next is a resolution supporting the 8 funding proposals for Congresswoman Slotkin, and I would turn this over to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam President and City Council. As in past years, our city has received requests from both our Senate and House representatives to help in the funding of several or potential earmark type of projects. But the accounts for both the House and the Senate, they're different for whatever reason. This year, the applications were a little bit more narrow in scope, but obviously they represent a good opportunity for our city to help us. We also saw less projects that had requests for fire and police type of projects. We also saw less type of social service type of projects. So at least, okay, I see comments up there, I'm sorry. Okay, so at least for the projects that we were asked to consider when we presented them to Congresswoman Slotkin, they recommended the 8 that are before you. What I'd like to do now is just to briefly go through those 8 projects with you. These are going to be considered. We're hoping they'll be considered in the 2024 federal budget. The total estimate for these projects is about $43.7 million. So if we were able to get all of them, that would be a significant amount to our city. The first one that we're looking at is the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Under this project, we are proposing to remediate the old and install a new digester facility. This was commissioned back in the 1970s, and obviously if we're able to replace this, it'll help us save some dollars in utility and operational savings. The estimated cost for this project is about $5.5 million. The next project is a residential footing drain disconnect program. Several areas in our city have homes with footing drains that are directly connected to the sanitary or combined sewers. And unfortunately, if there's ever a major rain event and our sewers are over capacity, this could sometimes cause some type of backage into the basements. So to help us alleviate this situation, we recommend that this project be approved. And basically, the solution is to remove the footing drain flow and instead install some pumps. And the estimated cost from this, it's a little scalable, and we're thinking it would be anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million.
And that is something that we have
Yes.
been a project that we've been working on throughout the city.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you. Obviously, there's another one, and this is still very similar to what we're working on, and this is the combined sewer overflow funds. Now, in this case, as you know, our city has been working for 13 years on our combined sewer overflow project. The estimated cost for this remaining work is somewhere between $250 million to $300 million. If we were to be able to receive these funds, and we're asking for $15 million here, the city would be able to reduce the use of sewer funds for another year. And in turn, this will help us to reduce any type of rate increase that we were considering, and of course, ensuring that our city is providing safe and efficient services. And we're asking, again, $15 million for this project. The next one is a city-owned fiber redundancy, or I prefer to call it a backup for and/or replacement. Our city facilities are all connected by a combination of city-owned and leased fiber connections. Several of the city-owned fiber connections need redundancy or replacement. Funding of this project will provide backup or replacement fiber connections between various key city facilities, and these would include our two main data centers, City Hall, our police fire operations, and perhaps maybe we may be able to use this on our new public safety facility. And we're looking at $1.5 million for this project. The next one is the Michigan Avenue Corridor Enhancement Project. Now, we were able to receive some funds just for a portion for this area, but it's nowhere near everything. There is so much more that still needs to get done. We're asking for a total of $9.8 million for this project. And again, if we're able to receive these funds, we're looking at making improvements such as a new and innovative roadway design that would encourage multimodal travel and the reduction of motor vehicle speeds. We're looking at dedicated bike facilities, curbs that we could move along the entire stretch to accommodate bikes, pedestrians, and other type of uses. We're looking at neighborhood district wayfinding and characterization, and this is something that all cities do, and this is to create a sense of place. We're also looking for improvements to the US 127 bridge, bus enhancement, new street trees. As I said, there's so many things we could do. One of the best things I'd like to do is to do some traffic signal upgrades where needed. And again, this is $9.8 million. Our next project is the Public Safety Complex Construction Funds. And here again, I know that our residents were very good, and they helped us to approve the bond so that we can construct this, but we're also asking assistance for these dollars, and we're looking for a total of $10 million. If we're able to get this, obviously this would reduce the amount of bond funds that we need, and it'll help to reduce the tax burden for our city's taxpayers. Also, we're looking at the Kalamazoo Street flood barrier. In this case, we're looking to install a barrier system and storm sewer overflow, and this will protect this area for another 2 feet of flooding depth. And of course, this will help to minimize the chance of flooding should a major flood occur. And you may recall the one that happened back in 2018. And we're looking for $100,000 on this one. And then lastly, and this one is kind of unique in that we call it the Universally Accessible Playground Facility. And in this case, we do have some funds already for this. It's had some support, and we have about 1.2 million, and we're looking for 800,000 to help us meet the 2 million that we need. And in this case, our city is partnering with the Capital Region Community Foundation, and this is called Play Michigan. If this is able to be created, or we're able to get the funds for this, then we would have the first universally accessible playground in the region. And this would be designed to promote inclusivity, and it would help the health and well-being of all children and their families. As I said, we have about 1.2 million already that we've been able to raise. Designers for this project would have far exceeded the ADA requirements to create a completely barrier-free environment where all children, their parents, adults, regardless of their abilities, can play side by side, and also children with sensory or development disabilities. Obviously, we'll also have lots of things to do if this is doable, and we're looking for 800K in this area. Like I've said in previous years, the Congresswoman's office has made it very clear to us that they're looking for broad-based support in order so that we can have projects like these included in their budget. As such, your support for this resolution is a significant step in this process. I thank you in advance for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we have Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Cos, Councilmember Spatafor. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you so much, President Wood. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Jane.
Thank you.
So these community-funded projects, you indicated that were selected by Congresswoman Slotkin's office, and it says that these projects were selected. How many applications were submitted?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number, but I know that departments sent several, and we did not receive all of them. I don't have the exact number.
If you wait a second, Emily, our soon-to-be internal
Yes.
auditor, might have the answer.
Emily's worked on this.
You've got to click the button, okay?
Excellent.
Still not on.
So it looks like we submitted 8 applications, and all of them were accepted. Is that
Okay.
correct, Emily? I mean, all right, thank you.
Okay.
So out of these 8, some of these aren't important, but community-funded projects, there were several different areas that you could apply for. We have a major crisis with housing, red tags, and those type of things. Were there projects submitted to address some of the needs of the people, not necessarily just the infrastructure or the sewer?
Well, as I said earlier, those types of projects that you're mentioning were not considered. However, we will be submitting some of those similar type of projects as you're mentioning to the Senate and see if perhaps they could qualify.
As you and I spoke, they do have eligibility for like community block funding, those type of funds where they do have an opportunity to submit. Why did the administration not submit for projects that would benefit people directly?
I believe that these projects will I apologize, that these projects will affect everybody directly, the residents of our community. But as I said again, Councilman, I don't mean to sound like a broken record here, but we will look for the Senate to see if we can apply for those projects.
For Congresswoman Slotkins, because I have an email that says that there was additional that we submitted for homelessness and housing, and the administration did not want to support it.
Can you repeat that one more time? You said that we submitted, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And that I have the email that said it was accepted for the first round for housing and homelessness to help address that, and the administration did not want to support that.
That
and it was eligible, yes.
That we applied, is that correct? Is that your statement, that we applied, that we administration applied?
Yes, Alyssa Slotkin's office said that they would support a proposal for housing and homelessness.
Okay.
That was not, did not want to go forward through the administration. So I'm just saying, as a community-funded project, that's something that our residents, our community needs. And so to take that very seriously, because that is additional funding that could be helping even with what the treasurer was saying, that's an important asset and supporting, potentially federal funds that can help us address some of these issues that we're having in our community.
Okay, I will look into that further and see if they qualify, and we will move forward. I do know, as I said, we are looking to submit applications to the Senate for those type of projects.
I understand, I'm talking about
And
the
I-
House, U.S. House of Representatives.
Yes.
What we're talking about today, we do understand that there is opportunity for the U.S. Senate, but I'm referring to what we're discussing today.
I understand.
In this resolution.
I understand. I will look into that matter further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's a follow-up.
No.
No, a different, okay.
yep, sorry.
So I'll go to Councilmember Cost and then Councilmember Spatafor.
Okay.
Thank you, President Wood. So I see a bunch of things on here that have funding already, like the public safety construction of $10 million. Was there any consideration put into, say, Morris Park Pool that's been closed for 4 years?
Yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about. That's something that I become more familiar on as I spend my time here, but we did not consider anything at this point in time.
So why would we consider a public safety? It seems to me that we're going to be sending the wrong message. We're closing down pools that generally people that can't afford to drive to water parks use in the summer. But we're going to put 10 million down on a public safety building. So we're going to build. It seems to me that the message is, let's get more police department buildings and, because Lansing might be dangerous, and pull away pools and other activities for kids, especially that pool that services that neighborhood, my family in particular, for 4 generations. So I'm a little concerned about the message this is sending. There's a bunch of things on this list that already have funding revenue, and Councilmember Brown brought up a very good point that we are in a red tag crisis right now, in a homelessness crisis.
Okay.
So, as I'm reading this here, and it's saying that these will make Lansing a more desirable place, wastewater treatment plant upgrades for $5.5 million, how does that make Lansing a more desirable place?
Our water treatment plants are very important. I mean, you've read reports coming from other cities. The treatment of our sewers is essential. We want to make sure that when people come to our community, that they are maintained properly and correctly. Our water is obviously something that's very important to us as well. Those are key issues, very important. One of the things that I've always when I address as a public administrator, when people think,
Not having a house is an important issue,
and
wouldn't
I
you
understand,
agree?
but yes, but if you don't have the proper water and sewer resources to be able to do that,
Well, if they don't have a house, they don't have to worry about it.
well, with all due respect, sir, I think that this is important, and this is something that we all need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before I go to Councilmember Spatafor, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think we had this discussion in leadership meeting, and that was, yes, there are items here that we do put funding into, but it would reduce
Yes.
what we have to utilize either from the general fund, or let's use the public safety building as an example. We received the 10 million. It's not on top of what we've already agreed to bond for. It would be 10 million less. Is that my
Yes.
correct understanding?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct, Council
And
President.
so, just like the CSO work, currently our sewer fee pays for that, which is increased by 4% every year. That's why you're looking at almost triple what your water bill is. And this would reduce what we would have to increase those fees by.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Thank you. Not about sewers today. It's actually about the playground, and I fully support the accessible playground. I think it's a great idea and great concept. But I do recall being presented a plan that the Capital Region Community Foundation was going to be raising dollars for that and would be matching dollar for dollar private dollars that were raised. And at the time, we were told $1.8 million. That was in May. And then in media reports, the price had escalated to 2.2, and now you've said they've raised 1.2 million and we're going to spend $3.3 million. how much more is this playground gonna cost, and how much more are we on the hook for? I mean, it's great that we're being given this puppy, this thing to take care of, but it keeps getting more expensive, and now we're asking the federal government for nearly $1 million.
Well, we're hoping that we
Nearly
can.
double expanded costs, so what's going on there?
Well, I don't know about that in terms of what's happening, but I do know that this is a project that we want to get done, and we're asking for 800,000, and we're thinking that this is the amount of dollars that they need in order to make that happen.
Will those $800,000 be matched by CRCF dollars, or?
I'm not aware of a match of any kind.
Okay, so, okay. Again, I think the playground should be built, but it seems like the goalposts keep getting moved by the foundation, and
I understand.
a lot of the projects they've come to us with are things we didn't necessarily ask for, but we get to pay for. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will look into that further to see if there's any change. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown, and as you're indicating you'll look into these further, this is on the agenda tonight for passage, so we would need the information for the council meeting this evening.
Well, again, approval of this request is very timely. And I respectfully would ask the city council to please consider approving these projects. I could come back later and give you the information that you need.
Jim, the approval of this is not an appropriation, correct? So.
We would have to come back.
So it would have to come back to us for an
Correct.
appropriation, and it could be turned down if we chose to. Okay.
Yes.
With that, Councilmember Brown.
So let me make sure I understand. If we approve this, we don't have to appropriate, and we could deny it later, because I've been told before we're gonna have information after we vote yes on something and I don't receive it. So I don't feel comfortable doing that. So you're saying if we appropriate the funds, we don't have to approve it in the end? Or excuse me, if we
We're not
approve
We're
it.
approving the application. We would not be appropriating them. It would this is additional funds, so it would have to come back for an appropriation.
Correct.
Okay,
My question.
Can I speak?
go ahead.
That's correct. Some resolutions where you approve the submitting of a grant application, the resolution would have in it the authority to appropriate also or spend the money. This resolution does not have that. So any money that's received would have to be appropriated.
Okay, and what is the time, well, okay, thank you.
Okay.
My question was to Councilman Spatterford, talking about the park, and, know that's an important thing, but then Councilman Cost brought up Morris River, which we've had, it seems like the entire city wanting investment made back into Morris Park Pool. Where was the justification decision not to even put an application in and then put one in for Adado Park?
Oh, that's a good question, Councilman. I would have to ask our parks folks to see, how they based this decision. I
Because
know
we had
that
hundreds and hundreds of people very, very
I
concerned about
understand.
Morris Park Pool, and there was a lot of commitments made to the constituents about looking at that. I think we allocated a few $100,000 last year to look at the cost, I guess, like some type of evaluation assessment. So we're making an investment, and then when there's an opportunity to, build up a park, then it's Adado versus Morris River, and, was anybody asked, or how did you guys come up with that?
Again, this was part of a team. They came together with some recommendations. They felt that these were the best ones that could go through. Apparently, we got 8 of them. Out of the 8 that we submitted, 8 were approved, and that was the decision then. I'd have to speak with our Parks Department to see if Morris Park was something that they wanted to take a look at. But for now, it wasn't, at least for my understanding, it was not included. But that doesn't mean that we won't look at it again, and it doesn't mean that maybe perhaps in future applications we won't submit it.
When we're talking about government transparency and being
Yes.
engaged and being public servants for the community, if we have constituents in an entire city outcry saying they want something, I would think that when it comes up to having federal dollars for community funding, that it would be looking at saying, hey, this is what the community wants.
I will take
And that's
that back.
That's
I will take it
unfortunate
back.
if it wasn't even looked at or regarded. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just, I don't know that this was the administration's rationale, but we did approve money for a study, and I don't believe the study has been completed, so we wouldn't know what the cost would be, that we could ask for an amount of money, and it might not be the amount that they need. So that's one consideration.
That makes sense, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I just will make a comment that I understand everybody's comments here, but it seems to me that once we approve this letter, it doesn't make much sense for us to vote it down if and when it comes here. I don't have a dog in the fight about some of this stuff. I would have rather some of the asks be more people-oriented as well, but let's not fool ourselves that we're gonna vote this thing down when it comes through, or we actually have an opportunity to make comment. Once this thing is voted and it gets approved on the federal level, the only thing left for us to do is either vote for the appropriation or not vote for the appropriation. We don't have an opportunity to change what gets funded. And so I think we need to be clear to the people and clear on this dais that once this thing is voted on and it's sent to Congresswoman Slotkin, if it's funded, it's funded. And we can either vote down the funding, why would we do that? Or we approve it. There's no changing. It's just frustrating to me when we hear, I'll take it under advisement, or we can do this. There's no advisement. It's either approve it today and then approve the funding or not. That's our choices today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Jim, is that true what she's saying?
One's a legal question and the other is a reality check. The legal question is, are you appropriating it? The answer is no. I've already said that. The reality check is, you're looking at a check for $8 million for a project, you're going to reject it? She's probably right.
All right. Councilmember Spatafor. Oh, yeah.
So I wasn't finished. So my question, that question was then to say, if he's saying that, if we have 8 projects and they're going, can you deny and say, okay, I don't like this one and we don't want to accept this one? Or you would have to take all 8 based on what she was saying?
Mr. City Attorney.
Mr. Councilman, the situations are all different, okay? This resolution has you supporting all 8 projects. You know, it's speculation what will happen if the 8 million is granted. You know, I'm saying that reality is you probably won't reject it, but anything could happen. It's not appropriated yet. It only gets appropriated when the money comes in and you need to put it into some account.
And thank you. And what Councilwoman Spitzley was saying is that basically it's an up or down for the whole appropriation. I guess that's my question. I apologize.
What the resolution says.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear for myself. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Spatafor again.
I'm going to move the resolution.
All right, we have a motion on the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have 6-1. That's not right. It's 5-1. Thank you. Okay, next are boards and commission term expirations, and that is placed on file. Okay, with that, we are going into a motion for closed session. And Councilmember Spatafor, we have a request from the finance director and for the deputy city attorney to be in the first closed session. So if you would include that. Pardon? Desiree, I said the finance director. Yes.
Sorry, Council President, may I attend as well? I did ask.
Yes, I said the deputy mayor.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought you said the deputy attorney.
I got
That's okay.
deputy city attorney, the finance director, and the deputy mayor. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would move pursuant to MCL 15.268 sub E, that we recess into closed session to consult with the city attorney in connection with the following specific pending litigation. An open meeting will have a deferential financial effect on the litigation of settlement position of the City of Lansing concerning these cases. This is City of Lansing et al. Versus Purdue Pharma et al.
Please call the roll.
Council
Oh,
members.
and I would like to include in that closed session the finance director, the deputy city attorney, and the deputy mayor.
Okay. Yes,
Had asked that we add the lawsuit that the city filed.
That's on the second.
that's on the second one,
That's the
Jim.
second one.
Okay.
We're doing two motions.
Okay. Go ahead.
On the first motion for closed session, Councilmember Spatafor?
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley? Yes. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson? Yes. Councilmember Cost?
Yes.
Councilmember Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 for the first closed session.
Okay.
Anyone else on this one?
No.
No, okay. Madam President, pursuant to MCL 15.268 sub E, I hereby move that we recess into a second closed session to consult with the city attorney in connection with the following specific pending litigation. As an open meeting will have a detrimental financial effect on the litigating or settlement position of the city of Lansing concerning these cases. Atkinson et al. V. City of Lansing et al. Charter Township of Lansing v. City of Lansing et al. City of Lansing v. OCOF Nonprofit Housing Corp. City of Lansing et al. v. Purdue Pharma et al. City of Lansing v. Holmes Apartment, Simtob Management and Investment, Good Life Apartments, Richard Simtob and Bradley Simtob, DePreckle v. City of Lansing et al., Freeman v. City of Lansing, Hardy Gregory v. City of Lansing et al., Hulan v. City of Lansing et al., Isaiah v. City v. Lansing Police Department, Karami v. City of Lansing et al., Legacy 5 LLC v. City of Lansing, Lynn v. City of Lansing, Phillips v. City of Lansing et al., Stewart v. City of Lansing et al., Taft v. City of Lansing et al., United States of America, and Coleman v. City of Lansing, LJE Jolly Cedar LLC v. City of Lansing, and Robinson Memorial Church of God in Christ v. City of Lansing.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Spatafor?
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson? Councilmember Cost?
Yes.
Councilmember Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 to go into the second closed session.
So for the audiences here, we are going into closed session. We have two separate closed sessions. Once the first one's done, we will automatically go into the second one. We will not come back out here, but we'll go back in our conference room. We expect probably a half hour. So thank you for being patient with us.
All right, we are back in session, and at 7:37 p.m., the Committee of the Whole of the City Council of the City of Lansing is adjourned. The City Council will resume in 5 minutes at 7:42-ish. See you all then.